I carried her for 9 months, I tore for her, I bled for her, and still the DNA test said, no match. Yeah, you heard that right. My body made milk for a baby that apparently wasn't mine. My belly stretched, my skin cracked, my hormones went full Hunger Games, and science had the audacity to tell me I was just a host. It started with blood. Not mine, hers. The pediatrician mentioned it casually, like it was an afterthought. Did you know she's B negative? Just nodding it in the records. And I smiled, nodded, didn't think much of it, until I got home. Because I'm a positive. And so is my husband. So unless someone rewrote the rules of biology while I was trying to get avocado mash into her mouth, that blood type didn't math. I Googled it. I wish I hadn't. I wish I had gone back to justifying it like every other weird postpartum thing, like the fact that she preferred being held by my husband's sister, or that she looked absolutely nothing like me. But I didn't. I spiraled. I dove into medical rabbit holes between pumping sessions and frozen lasagna reheats. I called the pediatrician back, casual-like, pretending I was double-checking records for our new insurance. They confirmed B negative. So I asked for a genetic blood panel. Not because I doubted I was her mom, I'd nearly died giving birth to her, for God's sake, but because I needed science to shut up and sit down. Instead, it stood up and slapped me in the face. I remember the moment the envelope arrived. It was thin, plain, just a white rectangle that held the power to shatter reality. My hands were shaking. I put the baby down in her rocker. She cooed. She looked up at me like I was everything. I opened it. I read the first line. Then the second. And then I dropped the paper. Probability of maternity, 0%. There's no preparing for that. No Lamaze breathing. No postpartum therapy. No Pinterest board for what to do when the baby you gave birth to isn't biologically yours. I called the clinic. The fertility clinic. The one we'd trusted for years. The one where I'd had 6 failed IUIs, 2 rounds of IVF, 1 miscarriage, and an entire lifetime's worth of internalized shame. I asked for a supervisor. I asked how this could happen. They said they'd investigate. They said rare lab errors can occur. They said nothing that made sense. I asked point blank, did someone swap embryos? There was silence. Then stammering. Then a line about protocols being reviewed. But I'm not an idiot. I know what a deflection sounds like. And I'd heard that tone before, just in a different voice. My husband's. If you'd met us before the baby, you'd probably have said we were that couple. You know, matching mugs, meal prep Sundays, a shared calendar color-coded down to our sex life. We lived in a 3-bedroom townhouse outside Portland, the kind with enough parking to brag about but not enough personality to remember. Our bedroom had blackout curtains. The kitchen had an air fryer we barely used but always mentioned. And our fridge. Our fridge had lists. Fertility supplements, ovulation test dates. Sexy time, reminders written in dry erase marker with tiny hearts on the O's. We were trying. Hard. 3 years of peeing on sticks, blood draws, just relax. Advice from people with 3 kids they didn't plan. When I finally got the call, I was in a CVS parking lot. The nurse said, "It's positive. Your HCG is doubling beautifully." I cried into my steering wheel like I'd won the fucking lottery. Called my husband. Screamed. He screamed. We sat in silence for a full minute. And then he said something I will never forget. "This baby is a miracle. You're a miracle." And I believed him. Because why wouldn't I? He held me through every failed round. Rubbed my back when I sobbed into beta test results. Told me I was still the strongest woman he knew, even when I couldn't stand to look at my own body. He was good. Solid. The man who made me warm lemon water every morning and lit a candle next to the bed when I did progesterone shots. And when I started showing. He kissed my belly every night. Talked to her. Said things like, "You're going to have your mom's fire." Which, looking back, makes me want to burn down the world. But at the time, it felt real. It was real to me. Pregnancy wasn't easy. I had low iron, swollen ankles, a placenta that didn't want to behave, but I carried her like a sacred assignment. We didn't throw a huge gender reveal. Just a small dinner, close friends, a pink cake, one terrible joke from his college roommate about finally proving his swimmer's work. The closer we got to the due date, the more romantic he got. Foot rubs, reading parenting books out loud. Whispering, "I can't believe she's almost here," while pressing his forehead to mine. It wasn't performative. It was intimate. Raw. Or so I thought. We even talked about names for hours. He loved Avery, said it felt smart and brave. I wanted something softer. Leela maybe, or Eden. We landed on Eden Avery because it felt like a compromise and a promise. Eden, like a garden after a storm. Avery, like the girl who'd grow into whatever she wanted. And when she came, God. I sobbed, he sobbed, the nurse cried, even the doctor looked moved. Because she was perfect. Tiny, pink, loud, a full head of black hair and lungs that didn't take instruction. I held her to my chest and whispered, "I would die for you." And then I looked up at him. He smiled. But now, when I replay that moment, frame by frame, something feels off. Not the smile. The eyes. There was no awe. Just relief. And not the kind you feel when your partner survives labor. The kind you feel when something dangerous is over. And you got away with it. But at the time, I didn't see that. I saw a man who loved his daughter, who loved me, who took paternity leave, who burped her like a pro, who swaddled her better than I could, who insisted I nap while he did 3 feedings. And still, the first crack came early. 2 weeks in. We were doing a diaper change. She screamed, I fumbled the wipes. He said, "Maybe you're just not a baby person." I laughed, said, "Neither are you." He said, "Yeah, but I adapt." It felt like a joke. Until it didn't. Because jokes don't echo. And that one, it bounced off the nursery walls for days. Then came the pediatrician visits. The nurses who kept saying, "She's got his eyes, and definitely Dad's chin." No one ever said she looked like me. And the breastfeeding. She hated it. Wouldn't latch. Preferred the bottle. Preferred him. And still I chalked it up to hormones, postpartum, insecurity. Because what else do you do when your miracle baby makes you feel like a guest in your own motherhood? You fake it. You smile. You say, "We're so lucky." Even when your gut whispers, something doesn't feel right. But you don't listen. Not yet. Because the miracle is still louder than the math. The thing about truth, it doesn't arrive all at once. It leaks. First as a drop, then a stain, then a flood you can't mop up with logic or loyalty. After the DNA envelope sucker punched me, I did what any rational, freshly postpartum, emotionally decimated woman would do. I doubted myself. I Googled maternity DNA test false negatives. I called the clinic back and asked if hormones could affect results. Spoiler, they can't. I convinced myself it was a sample mix-up. That my test tube got swapped with someone else's in some sleepy lab. That I was still her mom, just waiting for science to correct its typo. I didn't tell him right away. Not because I was protecting him. Because I was watching him. Closely. Because once you start wondering if the ground beneath you is quicksand, you stop trusting the flowers he planted on top of it. I kept the envelope hidden in a book I hadn't opened since our 3rd failed IUI. And I waited. For him to say something, for guilt to slip out through his pores. Instead, he brought me flowers. He made French toast on a Wednesday. He rubbed my shoulders and whispered, "You're doing so good." Like a man trying extra hard to stay in character. But the second call with the clinic shattered the last piece of my denial. I got a different nurse. Older, worn voice. The kind that says too much before she realizes she wasn't supposed to. When I asked again about the DNA results, she sighed. Not the "I'm busy" sigh. The "I know something you do" sigh. Then she said, "It's not the first time we've had confusion around your partner's samples." Excuse me. I froze. What do you mean? I asked. Pause too long. Then, I can't go into specifics without a formal request, but I can tell you this. Protocol is under review because we've had some irregularities. Irregularities? Like the fact that I'd been carrying a baby my body never created. I hung up. My ears were ringing. And then, like a goddamn cinematic betrayal montage, things started lining up. The sudden change in sperm donor paperwork when we did our second embryo transfer. How he was the one who insisted we skip the anonymous donor and use his previous sample from an earlier cycle. And the nurse he used to flirt with. The way he'd said, "Let me handle the storage forms. It's easier that way." That night, I looked at him across the dinner table. He was feeding Eden, calm, focused, smiling like a man who believed he got away with something. And I asked, "Did you ever change the donor ID?" He paused, just for half a second. But it was enough. Then came the lie. "What are you talking about?" I said it again, slower this time. "Did you change the donor ID before the transfer?" He laughed, like I was being cute. Then he said, "Babe, why would I ever do that?" I didn't blink. "Because maybe you wanted her to be more. You, or more not me." His jaw tightened. Subtle, but there. Like I'd stepped too close to the fuse. "I think you're overwhelmed," he said. "Did you," I said again, louder now, "have any contact with someone else's profile? Did you choose a different egg, a different donor?" And then he got quiet. That was the tell. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look shocked. Just quiet. I stood up. "Say it." He picked Eden up from her bouncer and held her like a shield. "I didn't think you'd ever know." There it was. The truth. Slick, casual, indifferent. Like he'd swapped my genetics the same way he picked new toppings on a pizza. "You what?" I whispered. "She's perfect," he said. "That's all that matters." I felt like my body left the room. All that time, every shot, every scan, every ache, I thought we were doing it together. Turns out, I was doing it for his fantasy. "She's ours," he said. "No," I corrected, "she's not mine." And that sentence tasted like fire in my mouth. Because it wasn't just grief anymore. It was theft. Of choice. Of identity. Of my goddamn DNA. And the worst part, he thought I'd thank him. He said, "She's perfect, that's all that matters." But the thing is, she isn't perfect. Not to me, not anymore. Because I can't look at her without seeing the lie stretched across her entire body. Not her fault, never her fault. But I look at those eyes, his eyes, and I don't see myself. Not in the cheekbones, not in the fingers, not in the soul. And now I know why. Because 2 nights after that dinner table confrontation, I found the file. No password. Just an open PDF on his laptop, buried under folders titled Garage Invoices and Q1 Taxes. Donor transfer log, final confirmation. It had his name, his ID number, the IVF case number. And under egg donor source. Private client provided. With a name. Celeste Vaughn. It didn't register at first. Just a name. And then I remembered. A woman he used to work with. Blonde, tall, the kind who says, "I don't usually wear makeup," while somehow looking like a beauty campaign. He'd mentioned her once, said she was smart but a little intense. I thought nothing of it. Until now. I Googled her. Pulled up her Instagram. Boom. Photo from 2 years ago. Caption, "Just finished my final donor cycle. Science is wild." And there she was. Posing in scrubs, holding a coffee, wearing a necklace I'd seen in our garage once and couldn't place. My stomach dropped. I clicked through her profile like it was an autopsy report. Eden's nose. Eden's ears. Eden's face. He hadn't just swapped out my embryo. He'd custom ordered someone else's life. I called the clinic again. Demanded to speak to the director. This time, they were nervous. Like lawyer-up nervous. They admitted, yes, my husband had submitted his own sample for the transfer, citing our mutual consent. And yes, the egg donor on file had been verified, per his request. No one thought to double-check with me. No one asked for my separate authorization. Because he had handled all the consent forms. Because he said I was on board. I could barely breathe. I sat on the bathroom floor, Eden asleep in the other room, and just shook. Because how do you grieve a baby who's alive? How do you process carrying someone else's child without ever being told? It wasn't just betrayal. It was a violation on a molecular level. He stole my body. Turned me into a gestational airbomb. And I had thanked him for the flowers. That night, I confronted him again. Held up the printout, the Instagram, the quote, the screenshots. He didn't deny it. He didn't cry. He didn't even look ashamed. You know what he said. She was a better option. Like we were building a brand, not a family. Her family's medical history is cleaner, he added. No mental illness, no endo. You've said yourself how hard pregnancy was on you. I stared at him like I didn't know who he was anymore. Because I didn't. The man I married may have had kind hands and a nervous laugh, but this man. He was a curator, a puppeteer, a eugenicist in khakis. You chose someone else's genetics, I whispered. I chose what was best for the baby, he said. I chose her. And in that moment, I finally understood what he meant when he called Eden perfect. Because to him, she was the woman he wished I had been. Packaged, engineered, sanitized. And I was the vessel. The rental. But not anymore. Because the miracle was never Eden. The miracle was me surviving it. And I wasn't done. Because now I was going to make sure the whole fucking world knew exactly what kind of man builds a family by erasing his wife from the DNA. There's a kind of silence you don't hear until it moves into your bones. It showed up around 2:13 a.m. Eden was crying. My body responded out of habit, breasts tingling, arms moving, but my brain said, don't. She's not yours. She never was. I sat at the edge of the bed, watching the baby monitor glow like a ghost light. She cried harder. I stayed frozen. And that moment broke me in places I didn't know existed. Because it wasn't just postpartum. It wasn't depression. It was displacement. I had built a sanctuary for a stranger. I had grieved for a pregnancy that wasn't mine. I had looked in the mirror and told myself I was a mother, when biologically, legally, genetically, I was. And no one told me. No one asked me. No one thought I deserved to know that the person growing inside me came from a woman I'd never even met. And worse, my husband thought I should be grateful. That's what he said the next morning, as I stood in the kitchen shaking, trying to pour formula with hands that couldn't remember how to hold anything. He came in, hair wet, towel around his neck, and said, "You're making this bigger than it is." And I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. This, I said, you mean the part where you erased my DNA from my child? That part. He had the audacity to shrug. It's not like you ever cared about biology. You said adoption was on the table. Yeah, but I was supposed to be part of the table. He made coffee like I hadn't just said the ugliest truth out loud. Like I was being dramatic. Like I wasn't the woman whose entire reproductive history had just been bypassed like a fucking software update. You're acting like I cheated on you, he said. You did, I said, with a Petri dish and a signature. That's when something shifted in him. He put the mug down. You're not thinking straight, he said. I blinked and felt something snap. No, I said, voice low. I'm thinking perfectly straight. You're the one who made a family behind my back and used my body to carry it out. His face twisted. She's still your daughter. No, I whispered. She's yours and hers, you just loan me the trauma. He stepped toward me. Don't do this. I stepped back. Because now I saw it clearly. This man, this curator of genes, didn't just commit a betrayal. He orchestrated a biological heist. And I was the unwilling getaway car. That week, I barely touched Eden. Not out of hate. Out of grief. Because every time I looked at her, I saw the life I thought I was living. The nursery I'd painted. The baby name I'd whispered to my belly. The lullabies I sang while folding tiny socks. All of it built on a lie. So I did what I do best. I documented it. Not for court. Not yet. But for me. I opened my camera, sat in front of it, raw face, unwashed hair, hoodie with spit-up stains. And I spoke. Hi, my name's Jordan. I carried a baby for 9 months, tore for her, bled for her, loved her. And then a DNA test told me she's not mine, not even a little bit. Wanna know how that happened? Stick around. I didn't post it. Yet. But something about saying it out loud made it realer than the test ever did. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something besides grief. I felt rage. Beautiful, clarifying, productive rage. Because if the system let this happen, I wasn't going to cry in the dark about it. I was going to turn the fucking lights on. The first video hit 300,000 views in 2 days. It was titled, I carried a baby for 9 months, then the DNA test said no match. No intro music, no makeup, just me in a hoodie sitting on the nursery floor holding the white envelope with the result. I told everything. The infertility, the IVF, the miracle. The mismatched blood types, the clinic's silence, the name I found in his files, the donor, the betrayal. I called the series, My Body, Not My Babies. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. The story was its own bomb. By day 4, women were duetting the video. By day 6, other IVF patients messaged me. I think something similar happened to me. They said my embryo failed, but never showed records. My husband was in charge of paperwork too. By day 10, a journalist from a reproductive ethics podcast DM'd me. By day 12, a lawyer. And on day 14, the clinic issued a statement. Full PR mode damage control. We take allegations of mismanagement seriously. An internal investigation has been opened. Client privacy prohibits comment. Except that last part. Didn't matter. Because I posted a second video that night. Same angle, same tone. This time, I showed the donor form. Blacked out names, left just enough details to make it clear. I never signed it. He did. Alone. Without consent. And that was enough. Enough for an investigative team to get involved. Enough for a swarm of comments to bury the clinic's Instagram in 1-star reviews and hashtags like gestational fraud and her DNA her choice. But I wasn't done. Because I still hadn't spoken to her. Celeste. The donor. The ghost in Eden's face. She reached out on day 21. An email. Subject, I think we need to talk. She was calm, respectful, said she had no idea her donation had been used for a partnered couple, that she had assumed it went to an anonymous match like every other time. She apologized. Not in the corporate, cover-your-ass way. In the human way. And then she said something that changed everything. He messaged me 6 months before your transfer, said he was planning something special. I thought it was weird, I blocked him. 6 months. That meant he'd been planning this long before our miracle. Before the last failed transfer, before the progesterone shots, before he made me think my body finally worked. It was never a miracle. It was a setup. And I was just the incubator. So I made one more video. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just said, here, what happens when a man decides his wife isn't genetically good enough, but still wants her to carry the child he created with another woman. I showed side-by-side baby photos, mine, Celeste, Eden's. The similarities were undeniable. I ended with, to the fertility clinic that let this happen, you failed me. To the man who orchestrated it, I will not be erased. And to anyone watching this, if something feels wrong during your fertility journey, don't ignore it. Your instincts aren't broken, the system is. That video, 1.6 million views in a week. By the time the clinic offered a private settlement, I already had legal counsel. By the time they tried to gaslight me in writing, perhaps this is a memory issue due to postpartum distress, I had a public record of every form and timestamp. And by the time my husband tried to spin the narrative that I was ruining Eden's future, I posted a quiet, final video. Just me in a courtroom hallway, holding a copy of the emergency petition for sole custody. Why? Because Celeste had voluntarily revoked parental claim. She didn't want a child she never consented to mother. And now I was the only one left who'd actually fought for Eden. Carried her, fed her, named her, sang to her at 3 a.m. when her biological father slept in another room like nothing was wrong. I wasn't her genetic mother, but I had been her real one every single day since the line turned pink. And that made me enough. Sometimes people ask if I still call her my daughter. And the answer is yes. But not because of DNA. Because of everything else. Because I was there when she first opened her eyes. Because I was the one who held her when she turned blue for 3 terrifying seconds in week 3. Because she still reaches for me when she's tired, sick, overstimulated, or scared of the blender. Because when I say her name, she knows it's home. And that's not something you fake in a lab. It's not on a donor profile. It doesn't come with clean genetics or optimized IQ predictions. It comes with love. And presence. And a kind of love that was forged in hellfire, burned into my body by betrayal, blood tests, stretch marks, and court filings. No one can take that. Not even the man who tried. He moved out 2 months after the last court date. I didn't cry. By then, I had already grieved him. Not the version I married. The man who held my hair back after egg retrieval, who brought me ginger chews and lavender socks. I grieved the version I thought he was. The version who said we when he meant me. The version who said miracle when he meant manipulation. The version who looked at our baby girl and saw his creation, not our family. He told mutual friends I'd overreacted. He tried to play the misunderstood husband with good intentions. But it didn't stick. Not after the videos. Not after the clinic issued a formal apology, public, written, recorded. Not after 3 more women came forward with eerily similar stories. He doesn't speak publicly anymore. Not about her. Not about me. He's been erased from the narrative he tried to control. I still get messages from women around the world. Some angry, some terrified, some thanking me. One woman said, "You saved me before I signed anything. I asked for copies of the consent forms, and guess what? My fiancé had already forged mine." Another said, "My clinic flagged my account for irregular donor activity. Turns out someone had tried to switch it on my behalf. I had no idea until I saw your story." I don't know how many women were saved. And I'll probably never know how many weren't. But I do know this. The truth makes a terrible secret, but an excellent shield. I wear it now. Not like armor. Like a banner. A story I get to tell on my terms. The last video I made in the series wasn't about Eden, or him, or the clinic. It was about me. It was a stitched-up, healed-over, unapologetic retelling of what it means to lose the version of motherhood you thought you were promised, and choose to stay anyway. I said, I used to think motherhood started with a test, then I thought it started with labor, then a birth certificate, a blood match, a sleepless night, a court ruling. But now I think it starts when you say, "I will not leave you, even though I could, even though I didn't choose this, even though it broke me. I'm still here, and you're still mine, and that's enough." That video is still up. It doesn't have millions of views. It doesn't need to. Because Eden will watch it one day. And when she does, she'll know exactly who I am. Not her biological mother. Not the default option. Not the placeholder. But the woman who chose her. Fought for her. Stayed. Not because I had to. Because I couldn't imagine a world where she didn't know just how deeply wanted she truly was. Even if that want was born out of the ugliest betrayal. Even if our beginning wasn't honest. Our ending will be. Because this time, it's ours. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.